Ni hao guys, and welcome back to my channel. I just finished my last trip in China, and if you are planning to visit China soon, this guide might help you. So let's get into it. So let me walk you through everything you need to know, from must-have apps to mobile payment, to how to ride the trains, maybe domestic flights, also cultural shocks, and the unspoken rules no one tells you about. I have personally visited more than 10 cities across China, from big urban hubs like Beijing, Shanghai, Chongqing and Chengdu, to even small ancient towns on the countryside. I have climbed mountains like Zhangjiajie, also known as the Avatar Mountains, to the famous Mount Huashan. So this guide isn't just theory. This is real first-hand experience to help you travel smart, stay safe, and enjoy your adventure to the fullest. China is incredibly high-tech, as you guys might know, but it's a total different digital world. Many Westerners apps won't work or don't work as accurate. So first of all, Google Maps. In some regions it is working, but it's like a little bit older version, so it might be not as accurate. So maybe use Baidu Maps instead. It is super accurate, especially for addresses and walking routes, but it's a little hassle to figure out how to set it up in English. I personally used most of the time Apple Maps because it is pretty okay in major cities, and it also has English interface, so it's the easiest for me personally. So China is basically a cashless country. Even the street vendors have their own QR code for mobile payment like Alipay or Weixin Pay. So normally when I travel, I bring some cash for backup, and I still have my backup money from my first trip in China because I actually never used it. So if we talk about mobile payment, I highly recommend you to download Alipay. It's like an all-in-one app. You can use it at the supermarket, at the street vendors. You use it as your metro ticket as well. I talk about this later. And you can also book your ride through Didi, which is the Chinese version of Uber, which I also talk about later in this video. So if you're traveling with a friend or alone, everyone should have this app. So go and download Alipay right now because it's a must-have, and you can set it up with your foreign credit card or debit card. I'll do an extra video on how to set up Alipay because this is the most important app in China. So the second most important app is WeChat or Weixin. You can use it for chatting like WhatsApp, but it's more than that because you can also use it for payment. In the case that Alipay isn't working, I recommend you to have Weixin Pay as a backup, because some locals, even at the countryside, they are more used to Weixin Pay. Download Weixin as well, and it's also good for communication with your hotel staff, and something is wrong, it has auto translation. I'll do also an extra video how to set up Weixin payment because it's a little bit more confusing than the Alipay, but also a good thing to have it. The pro tip here is to set up everything before you arrive, because you'll need your passport information and credit card details, and you can set it up easily at home and then get the final step when you're in China. Okay, let's talk about the metro. First thing you need to know is how to get your metro card. You can go to the counter machines. They are still working, but I never used it because it is pretty easy to use it in Alipay. You just go to Alipay and search for metro option. Then you choose the city you are, because you have to be in China at this moment. Maybe you go to the gate of the metro and set it up there. It's fast and good working. And then you can activate the card. And then all you have to do is scan your phone at the gate, and it's just like mobile payment. So pretty easy. If we are talking about transportation, there's also the e-hailing option. The rest of the world knows Uber. In China it is called Didi. You can download the Didi app and use it there, but I actually never did that because you can also access it inside Alipay, which is pretty easy and smooth. So Didi just works like Uber. It is pretty almost everywhere. It is cheap. You have separate options like Premium or Didi Flash, and Yeah, I actually never had any problems. I also took many Didis with my luggages. I carried like 4 luggages, and sometimes they were a little bit complaining, but it every time worked pretty well. So even in small towns, it's pretty easy and good to use. If you're using Didi and enter the car, the driver will ask you for the last 4 digits of your phone number. So it's pretty smart to learn these last 4 digits in Chinese and to confirm that you are the right person in the car.
你好，
打这里啊。
对。
And in case that there are only taxis available, don't hit a taxi like that. Also book it on the Didi app, because you can see how much is the price on the Didi app, and you won't get scammed like I did once. For train schedules and which line you have to take and change the station, everything you need to know, I used Metroman. And I can highly recommend it. It's in English and it's working pretty smooth. So highly recommend. So let's talk about booking trains, hotels and flights. So for booking hotels, flights and especially the high-speed train, I highly recommend trip.com. It's all in English, it accepts international cards and it's super user-friendly, and it works pretty well in China. It's great for booking the train as well. You have this button where you click on and it's super easy and convenient. I also booked many hotels and domestic flights on trip.com, which are much cheaper than on other international platforms you can use. So you can use Trip at home and book everything already, or just do it a little bit more spontaneous when you're in China. So the Chinese high-speed rail system is pretty big right now. You can have access to many big cities within a couple of hours, and the booking itself is a little bit confusing, because there is this official website which is called 12306.cn. This is the official website. Most of it is in Chinese. The translation in English is not really accurate. It's really a pain. So I tried it, but I failed. So I highly recommend using trip.com. So if you want to use the train in China, you have to book your trips a long time in advance. I guess at least 2 weeks, because it's all on a reservation system, and if the tickets are sold out, you have less chance to get one. So that's the thing you have to consider. But you can't book your tickets too far in the future, because they are only available a few weeks before you want to actually use the train ride. On trip.com there is this feature, you can put yourself on a waiting list and you can see how high your chance is to get the ticket. So you can maybe use several bookings and then one you are lucky or not. But due to my experience, I can tell you most of the time you get the tickets. So the only negative thing on booking the train ticket on trip.com is sometimes your seats aren't next to each other. We had sometimes the things that our seats were behind or on the side of the aisle, but this will work as well. So for booking the train, you only need your passport, and the passport itself is also your ticket. So this is key if you go to a train station. Train stations in China are like more of an airport style. You first enter the train station throughout security check. So I guess there are some similar rules like at the airport with liquids. I brought a big hairspray can and it was not allowed. Some people had to drink their waters and tea, but I'm not 100% sure what is allowed and what's not. The railway stations in China are like big halls, and then you have like the gates also similar to airports where you can board your train. There's also big information boards. You can check where your train departs at which gate. So I guess usually the boarding starts 30 minutes before departure, so make sure to be at the gate at this moment. If you're a foreigner, you have to use your passport, and there's an extra counter to check in, because the Chinese have their ID card and they can just tap into the gate. But you need to go to a real person, an agent of the railway company, and check you in with the passport. So, as I mentioned before, your ticket is only your passport. You won't get any papers or digital information. You just make the booking on trip.com, and if they say the ticket is successfully booked, That's all. You just bring your passport and then check it, and then this is your ticket. In the case you missed your train, which you shouldn't, but this might happen sometimes, you can go to an extra counter, and if you're lucky and the next trains aren't fully booked, they can change your booking to the next train, and it's totally free. So keep this in mind if this happened to you. So the internet in China works pretty different than in the rest of the world because of some restrictions. So the apps you normally use might not work, like Google, Instagram, WhatsApp, also TikTok and YouTube. And there's also many websites you can't have access to, like Google. So if you want to have access to all these, you can use a VPN. You have to set the VPN before you arrive in China. But if you use a VPN, you can't have access to the local Wi-Fi. So if you want to use a VPN, there's some out there you can check out. I actually never did this on my own because I used Airalo instead, which is like an eSIM company, and it has a VPN already inside. So you can use your mobile data with a VPN and it works everything fine. I will also do an extra video on how to set up Airalo, which I highly recommend, and I'm not sponsored by that. Due to the fact that many Westerners apps aren't available in China, there's always a Chinese version, like WhatsApp has WeChat. For chatting, everyone is using it, and some people also might ask you for their numbers, and it's good to communicate with the hotel staff and so on. And there's also TikTok, which everyone thinks is a Chinese company, but this is the international version everyone is seeing. China has Douyin at their version. And you can also use the famous Xiaohongshu, which many of you might know as Red Note. Pretty fun to check out and have some chats with locals. So there's also many other apps which I didn't use. One is also Meituan, you maybe want to use. It's for like food delivery. I used it once in Shenzhen where I had this drone delivery for food. And yeah, it also like Uber Eats, something like that. You can maybe use it on your trip as well. China is a super safe, modern and friendly place, but it's also a really different culture. So here's something that might surprise you. So the first topic is respect for the others, and especially for the elderly people. Older people have a very special status in the Chinese culture. You might sometimes see them cutting the line, and which is pretty okay, and nobody is really complaining about it. Sometimes some other older people will complain, but no one else does. The second thing is curiosity and staring. You might notice that some people will stare at you pretty intense and also take some pictures of you without asking. This is all just their curiosity. You're maybe the first foreigner they are seeing in their lives. Even on the smaller cities and on the countryside, this gets a little intense sometimes. And if you hear Lao or Lao Wai, they are maybe talking about you. There's also this language barrier problems we have. Not everyone speaks English. They are learning it in school, but most of the people are pretty shy to use it. And if they see a foreigner only speaking English, some might be a little bit shocked and say, oh, okay, I have to speak English now. But they are always really friendly and trying to help you. So due to the fact that even in the big major cities, some people have their problems in talking in English to you, you have to use Google Translator, or I also bought this cute little translator here in Shenzhen.
这是我可爱的小翻译。
This is my cute little translator, it says, in Chinese. And it was pretty helpful to communicate with locals in Shenzhen and also in the countryside. And yeah, I can recommend buying some of these. Maybe there's some on the internet you can buy before you go to China. But Google Translator is also working pretty good instead. And you also should mention there's also people coming to you and talking in Chinese and talking, even if you signal them, I don't understand Chinese, they won't stop talking. Even the elderly people, they want to help you and find out where you're from, they're curious and so on. And they keep talking and talking. But I also learned that sometimes they think the foreigners can speak Chinese as well, because in commercials there's also some foreigners speaking Chinese pretty well. And yeah, sometimes the Chinese even itself they don't understand, and then they write Chinese on their hand to communicate with each other, because on some provinces the Chinese might be a little bit different. So this is a reason why they maybe talk to you in Chinese and won't stop. So the next topic is public noise. So don't get shocked if someone in the metro is sitting next to you and watching their videos in full volume, because these headphones here are not too famous in China, I guess. Some younger generations are starting using them, but the elderlies won't, and they are watching their videos in full volume. So this might be a little bit annoying in the metro if there's many people watching their videos in full volume. On my last trip, I recognized there's even some carriages at the high-speed train which are noise reduced, and there's also the staff coming and telling the people to be quiet. But I didn't know this before, because you can't book this on trip.com, so you can't say I want a lower noise carriage. So the next thing is tipping, because as most of Asian countries, you don't have to give any tip. And I guess it's also considered as rude to give some tip to the people, so no tips at all. So next thing on my list here is toilets, smoking and public safety. So here are a few realities you have to prepare for. The public toilets are not always the cleanest. In some malls they are pretty okay, but most of the times if they're at the street and so on, they are in a bad condition, I have to tell you. So bring some tissues and hand sanitizers. And you also have to know that in most public toilets, the people are smoking because there are no cameras. And I guess it's illegal to smoke on the street, so they do it in the toilet. And yeah, this won't make it any cleaner. Then we have to talk about the CCTV and safety, because cameras are everywhere in China. They are on the buses, malls, on the streets, and there's also many security people and police which are carrying a camera. There's also some security people walking through the railway if you're using the train and doing some videos of the people. So this is something you might have to know. You get filmed everywhere you go. So the upside of all the cameras is that the crime rate is really, really low. So if you're having a coffee, you can leave all your belongings at the table, go to the restroom and come back and no one will touch it. So I always felt pretty safe in China, even in some crowded areas where it's usually some pickpockets, nothing I experienced in China. And also at the night you can travel alone, which is absolutely a bonus point. Now let's talk about the food, which is amazing and cheap. Most of the food is pretty incredible and also really affordable. So try as much food as you can in China. From big mall food courts to high-end restaurants and also some street food, it's all on the lower pricey side, and most of the time I really enjoyed the food. So like biang, which is one of my famous dishes, which is a pretty long noodle. And also, if you're in Chongqing, try some hot pot, and also try the famous Peking duck if you're in Beijing. Check out my video from the Peking duck, which is pretty awesome dish. And if you don't want to have always Chinese food, there's always a fast food chain nearby, like McDonald's and Burger King, which is pretty easy to order. KFC I also had to struggle, because they only work with their own app. There's no counter where you can order, and with the app it was always really difficult, and some people had to help me there, and if it's full it's not as cool, you know. So KFC. So most restaurant and street food have some pictures. I normally take my phone, take a picture and show to the people what I want to have. And if there's only Chinese characters, you can use Google Translator, take a picture there, and it can translate it to you in English or any other language. So last but not least, let's talk about visa requirements. There's still a visa-free entry for about 30 days until December 31 this year, 2025. And most of EU member nationals of about 47 countries, I'll show you here, are allowed to entry free for 30 days. And also some countries like Malaysia, New Zealand, Australia, Saudi Arabia, and yeah, many more. So check this list. And yeah, bad news for US citizens, you also have to apply for some visas, or there's also these 144 visas, but I'm not too sure about these requirements for US people, so please check them if you're planning to visit China in the future. So my final thoughts are, China is a massive, diverse and full of surprises country. Whether you're exploring big major cities, hiking remotely through some mountains, or wandering through some pretty ancient towns, it's always really fascinating. So guys, set up your apps right now, Alipay, WeChat and also Eralo if you want to do it like me as well. And go with an open mind, and I'll promise you, you will have the time of your life in China. So if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I will answer every one of you. And if you think this guide was helpful, just leave a like and please subscribe to this channel. So safe travels, and I wish you an amazing time in China and great adventures there. So see you in the next episode.